Hello everyone, I'm Catherine from Peace Etc. and I guide people who grew up in mentally and emotionally unstable homes to become safe and secure in themselves and experience improved self-esteem and self-worth through inner child healing. So over the last 2 months, I've been really diving deep within myself. It's been shadow work after shadow work, my favorite. But it's like everything is happening all at once. Shadow work like healing and self-discovery and empowerment and exploring new ways of being and being in new ways, and also just letting myself be, slowing down and experiencing life in a new way. So everything has been happening all at once. So if you're going through it all as well, you're not alone. And I want to start sharing what I've been learning. And the first thing that I want to share is what I've been learning about trust. So I had issues trusting myself, and I have trust issues, which is becoming better and better and less. But I had huge trust issues. And what I've been learning is that trusting yourself and experiencing trust in relationships and experiencing trust in your life, they are all related to each other. So what really started as healing self-trust issues led to healing my trust issues when it comes to my life and how my life is unfolding and what's happening in my life, and also healing trust issues in relationships. All right, so where do I start? Yeah, what really began was like, I began looking at where I experienced distrust and fear in relation to myself, and also in relation to, first and foremost, my parents, where they experienced distrust, what I inherited from them and made my own about relationships and about life, and also through my own experiences, where I learned to distrust and be fearful and anxious. And I began looking at them, seeing what made me fearful, what made me feel anxious, what made me want to avoid things, situations, people, things. And from there, I began to bring more love into myself. I began feeling the fears and being there with my inner child, letting her talk to me about why these things are scary. Asking her, hey, like, is this you, or where is this coming from? And if it was coming from somebody else, then say, what made you make it your own? And do you still want to keep it? Like, is this still true to you? And also sitting a lot with fears and anxieties and what made me want to run or feel uncomfortable in my body. And also seeing, whenever I sit with these uncomfortable emotions and feelings, then I see what I want to run to in order to avoid these feelings, to numb the fear, to numb the pain, to numb the potential like backlash or outcome that I don't want. It's like really getting a bigger picture about myself. But the more I sat with these fears and anxieties, when it came to trusting other people, when it came to trusting myself, when it came to trusting life, the more I could say, okay, it was scary in the past, but I don't need to be that way still. I don't need to hold on to these fears anymore. And I've always had good people around me, or I've always had love, and I've always been supported in my life, emotionally, mentally, not always from the same people, but there is always support there, financially, also materially. And so, yeah, it was a gradual process, but I began to heal my trust issue and to be able to bring so much more love into my body. And during this process, I sat a lot with the energy of trust, what trust feels like. And I realized that trust is so expansive and it's very warm. And it's like a fast moving energy, but that is so still at the same time. There's not this like anxiety that's created even though it's moving very fast and energetic in my body. Whereas fear can move very fast and cause disruptions and make me feel more wobbly and anxious, like I need to do something. But trust, like when I feel trust, I don't always feel like I need to be doing something, but I can just be even more. And that's a switch from going from conditioned self to unconditional self. Like unconditional self or unconditioned self doesn't always need to be doing something. It just is. And it embodies themselves. Like unconditional self, it's more of an embodied energy, whereas like distrustful or conditioned self is like always thinking about the next thing to do and like kind of is always like on its toes and moving and trying to like prove itself in order to be loved, in order to experience love and be accepted and valued. So the more I let myself experience this trust energy, the more I became comfortable in stillness. I thought I was already, but it just went to a whole new level. And I could relax. And that's the thing, like that's one of the biggest takeaways. I learned how to relax. When you're trusting, you're relaxed. It's like, oh, you can just like kick back and sit still. But when you're not trusting, you're tense. And it's interesting because like just by relaxing, you can tell yourself to trust more. Like it's like a signal that gets sent that you can trust and let go. Whereas when you're tense and when you're anxious, you're not trusting. So these states go like hand in hand, and you can become aware of like what state you're in, if you're in a distrustful state or a trustful state. But anyways, I realized that when I became more trusting of myself then and more relaxed in myself, then I was more relaxed and trusting in my life and that everything was working out the way it's meant to. And I could let things unfold at its own timing and in its own ways rather than pushing for things to go a certain way for me to feel good. I stopped pushing. And I want to talk about that more in another video. But that's also important. When you trust, you don't need to push. You can just kick back and let go and let happen. I thought I saw a bug, but it wasn't. And so when I'm also trusting life, then I'm experiencing more trust in my relationships. I'm not forcing people to be certain ways for me to feel like I can trust them. I'm more accepting. Yeah, and I'm more accepting of life when I'm trusting as well. Acceptance and trust goes hand in hand. So when I'm more trusting and accepting in my relationships, I can see people for who they are, and I don't need to change them to be who I need them to be. Because when I need them to be a certain way, then like I'm using them to feel something in me, that I'm not feeling through myself. Or I'm not letting life fill for me. But like there's less controlling. The more I'm accepting and trusting, then there's not much controlling in my relationships. Like I can just let go and let be. And people who I can't trust just goes away, and who I who aren't on the same page or wavelength go away, and people who I can trust stays. And there is a sense of increased safety in my relationships. And this trust in relationships, this trust and acceptance in relationships, again, goes hand in hand with my life. The more I'm experiencing trust in relationships and safety in my relationships, the more I notice that I'm experiencing safety and trust and acceptance for my life wherever I'm at. And also I'm experiencing safety, trust, and acceptance for myself just as I am in that moment. I'm not pushing myself to be who I'm not or who I should be or who I need to be in any moment. I just am. And again, because I'm letting myself just be, I'm also letting life just be in relationships with people, and other people, just be themselves. It's this like awesome circle. It's not a triangle. It feels like more of a circular. What you call it? I don't know. I lost the word for it, but cycle. There you go. But yeah, it's interesting because I had a lot of anxiety, and so when we talk about attachment styles, I don't think they're permanent. And I think that like they're not who you are, but you can experience relationship anxiety and be avoidant and fearful in different contexts. Like you can be triggered into these things, but I don't think they're permanent. You can grow out of them. And that's another topic as well. But the more I looked at those, what areas I felt anxious, fearful, and avoidant in, the more I could bring love to myself and the more secure I became. So rather than running away from those experiences and behaviors and thoughts and emotions that stir anxious attachment, fearful attachment, and avoidant attachment, looking at them is a step to really overcoming them and letting them go. They don't need to be you longer than you want them to. But it does require you to sit with yourself and look at yourself and also not judge yourself. We're always evolving and we're changing. You can let yourself change if you want to. And from what I've experienced over the last 2 months in this deep, deep cycle of healing, it's so freeing, and it's like I've experienced so much ease now in myself, in my relationships, in life. I'm not saying it's easy, but there's more sense of like I can just breathe, I can just be, and I can like not control and grasp onto things. And it's wonderful, like getting here and being here. So, the more you become secure in yourself, the more that gets reflected in your relationships and in your life. And like this security allows you to enjoy life. I realized like I love life, and I thought I was enjoying my life, but there is so much more room for enjoyment. And I've always been a hard worker, and I value hard work, but enjoyment is as important as working hard. And I finally get to do that through healing trust issues. So for now, I'm just going to keep it here because I feel good. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. And thank you so much for watching this video for this long. I appreciate you being here, and I'm sending you all the best on your own healing, self-discovery, and empowerment journey.